Welcome back to another episode of Work in Progress. I am here and accompanied virtually for the first time. We're doing something new and experimental with the podcast since I'm based in Munich and Vanessa's based in Berlin. So, welcome everyone. I am your host. If you're new to this podcast, my name is Barbara Estrada and I am here with Vanessa. Vanessa, say hi to the people. Introduce yourself to those that don't know you.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa Wachtmeister. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I'm a proud Chicana, and I've actually been abroad for the last 11 years. So I've been in China, the UK, Turkey, now here in Germany. No plans to come home. Stop asking mom.
I love that. That's a great introduction because I want to just tell people how we kind of like met in a sort of way. I came across Vanessa's content on Instagram. I think the algorithm works in a very interesting way. It, for some reason, was like, okay, let's find the identifiers between Vanessa and Barbara. Okay, it is Latina, it is being abroad, it is going through that journey. And I love essentially what it is that you advocate for, what your messaging is. Also, it's all very educational on your platform. I feel like that is something that I think a lot of people can take away from, that is free information, and also being able to have access to you in that way. So let's talk about like navigating all that, right? Because I think a lot of Americans or anyone in general that wants to move abroad are really afraid to take that first step and don't really know how, right? Because then they have to get out of their comfort zone and really navigating all of that on their own. So can you just talk about your journey to those that don't know you and kind of that first step that you took to really move abroad?
Yeah, so I just started telling people I'm moving to China. It was a really great way to keep myself accountable because I don't like to be embarrassed. And so I don't like to take back anything that I say with my whole chest. So the first thing to do is to announce it to your friends, your family, whoever cares about you. You don't need to be as specific as like, I'm going to move here by this time, but getting people in your life on board with the idea, socialized with the thought of you not being next door for too much longer, will start to move the wheels forward for you because you're going to feel like, oh my God, everyone expects me to do this now. Why not just take the leap? The second more practical thing that I would recommend is to start figuring out which countries align with your values or with the purpose of your move abroad. So for me, I wanted an adventure. I wanted something completely different. So China was the furthest place that I could teach English. And that's why I decided to go in that direction. Today, I'm a little bit more adult and I have a lot more responsibilities. So Germany was really where I wanted to land because I could focus on my career, support my family, and have like a really nice and a relaxed adult life.
Yeah, that's, that it really perfectly encompasses a lot of the touch points, right? Like you moving abroad to teach English and then your life making its way towards Germany, which is a part that I think a lot of people try to find like kind of like their next step, right? Why did you feel like Germany was that next step for you that made sense? Was it from a professional or a personal point of view, or was it a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. So my husband is actually from Germany, and after living abroad for 16 years, his job pulled him back into Germany, and we thought that was the right move for our family. I was very lucky that my employer, it's a big travel tech company, they also had offices in Germany. So the transition actually was relatively easier because I was able to jump jobs internally into a position that would allow me to take my job to Germany.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's perfect. I mean, like, I think also in a way it's kind of like, I don't know, whether you want to consider if you believe in it, like divine timing of things, right? And I think also just being able to like make that transition with somebody else also really helps, right? But I think also we do want to not like dehumanize or take away from all the work that you've done, because I've also seen sometimes like certain comments of people telling you, oh, well, you have a husband or you have a partner that helps. And I think that's something that I feel like you should definitely clarify to those that are listening, right? To those that are watching about that, right? Like all the effort behind the scenes that I think a lot of people don't get the chance to see, right?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I moved abroad by myself. I met my husband when I was abroad, but I was a person before him, and I will be a person after him. So if you follow me on Wander Onwards, you'll get to know more about my money content, my personal finance content. All of my numbers, all of my goals, they're independent of my husband. And it would be nice to have him and his money there at the end. But first and foremost, we are planning to take care of myself and whoever is in my space, whether that's my parents or any offspring I might have. But I want to make sure that my plan can support me first and foremost.
Yeah, that is the most important thing. And I think also now transitioning into this topic of creating a career abroad and that perspective, right? Because I think a bunch of people, one of the things that I guess it's very intersectional with visas and then getting a job that will sponsor your visa, right? Do you feel like that is necessary to move abroad, or can somebody really move abroad, let's say, with their own business?
Yeah, you can definitely move abroad as an entrepreneur, as a retired person, as someone who is independently wealthy or financially stable. There are so many different routes abroad. And so that's what I really get into in my Move Abroad Masterclass. We figure out what is your values and like what countries would match it. And then most importantly, how are you going to get there from an immigration standpoint? There are certain countries that are more flexible with their visa requirements for US American passport holders. So maybe that's the step we take first for you. Um, we always want to consider one, like, is this country long term for you? And if not, maybe we can go on a more flexible plan where you go on a language learning visa or you do a job seeker visa. The point is the first time you make that jump abroad with your career, your business, whatever, that's going to be the most painful. And then you're going to start to build your skills, resilience, and understanding of the system. And it progressively gets easier, kind of like a career.
Yeah, no, that is true. It is kind of like a career in that sense, because it's almost like, even with myself, I have lived so many lives here in Munich. I've transitioned from being an au pair to then being an English teacher to now being what I'm working in, which is a marketing and communications department for a branding agency. And it was very tough doing that on my own, like being here abroad and figuring it out. Not advocating that that should be the way. There's many ways, I think, for everybody and how they come to where they are today. But what would you say? And I'm very, curious, Vanessa, like from all the stories that you've heard, just one that has really impacted you with, whether that be with the people that you've worked with or friends in your own personal life, to those that have moved abroad, their move abroad story, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I have two stories in the back of my mind. So one is actually my best friend in the world, Holly Priestland. Follow her on Instagram. So she learned Chinese in Edinburgh University in Scotland, because that's where you go to learn Chinese in the UK. And she would do little stints back and forth to China during her program. And then she went there after her program as well. And each time she went, it got progressively easier because her language was better. She had a better network. She had a better understanding of what to expect. And then once she was there for several years and I moved there, we met, fell in love, became roommates, raised two cats together. And I was fresh meat, like no idea what I was doing. And to have her experience in the space really helped me land on my feet and propel myself forward. But it was just such an amazing story that she had, where incrementally she got better and better. In comparison, I have a client, Lauren, who has been working in the United States in tech for a while now. And we did a private coaching program where we transitioned her career to Berlin. And she got a 6-figure offer as a principal program manager, like within 3 months. So that was an incredible transition. That is not the normal. Lauren is coming with a lot of experience in the tech space, big names behind her as well. So there are really different ways to become successful. But the TLDR here is, don't do it alone, especially if it's your first time. that is going to take a lot longer. It's going to be a lot more painful. Find a network, find a coach, find a handsome man that doesn't speak English that you can trick into loving you. Something around those lines. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I love that though. It's so important. I think, yeah, definitely don't take or maybe take, but don't take, I would say, the approach that I took, which is very much like on my own at the time, especially with COVID moving here. It was more so like, okay, let's just figure it out. But there are so many people like Vanessa online, right, that offer these kinds of resources and trying to find, I would say, maybe, somebody that you would match with, right? I don't know if there's like a type of person that you work with, Vanessa, that you would say you normally enjoy working with, but I'm, also very curious about that as well, right?
Yeah, I think the ideal person that would be a client of mine is someone who is more A-type, a little bit more serious about their life. That doesn't mean that you need to be like a banker or a tech girly or anything like that. But I put in a lot of fucking hard work. Ooh, can I swear on this podcast? Okay. I put my whole soul into everything I do, or I just don't do it. And so to work with someone who is on a different wavelength and is like not totally serious about it, or like is more here for the vibes, I think maybe someone different than me might be more your speed and your style, because there's a lot of accountability when you work with me. I'm very results oriented, because you are paying to accomplish something with me, and so that requires execution and a little bit more accountability in our program, if I could phrase it like that.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, it's also even, I don't know if you have like a first time consultation with your potential clients, but I think also even through that route as well, you get to know a little bit more about the person, and it works both ways, right? It's a working relationship. So now to shift a bit about this topic that I feel like is also very trendy, I would say, in not the best positive way, but in the topic of like layoffs. And I know that's something as well that now you're creating content around, with like, can you afford getting laid off? And that's such an interesting question to pose. So I'm going to throw that question at you and just, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So last week, my whole world shattered because my big tech employer announced that we were doing 8% layoffs across the world. And so fortunately, I was not impacted, but there was a week of time where people were just getting HR meetings in their diaries out of nowhere. Different countries have different labor laws. So there was like a delayed reaction, and we all very much felt unstable, unsafe. It was horrible. And so for me, I'm like a very A-type personality, as you heard. So I started doing the math. Can I afford to be laid off and just live off of my passive income that I make from my various sources of income? So I defined my passive income as the ads on my blog, the affiliates on my blog, and the book with me product that I offer, because I don't do any marketing for this. For the book the call with me, you book a call, I show up for 45 minutes. It's a very low touch product. And so I did the math. I'm making about $3,500 a month right now. And I'm going to just do some quick math on my phone so I don't embarrass myself. That's about $32,000 a year that I make just from stuff sitting on the internet. That doesn't include my YouTube income, my TikTok income, my coaching programs. And so if you know anything about the cost of living here in Germany, I'm not living La Vida Loca by any stretch of the imagination, but my rent is paid for, my insurance is paid for, my taxes are paid for. I'm set. I can survive for that year, for whatever amount of time I need to on that. In addition to this income, I also have Social Security and other benefits here in Germany. I would get a severance package. I think once I calculated the numbers and really understood the cost of my lifestyle, I felt so much better knowing that I could still maintain my independence and bring an income to my family, so I wouldn't feel any sort of way about, I don't know, not working and relying on my husband at that time.
Right. That's, but like, applause to you. That is so inspirational to hear. Especially because, like, coming from, for those that, are listening and watching, If you identify with being a person of color or of a certain minority group, not having the tools or resources and information like that can set your future in so many different ways, and especially finances and money talks. At least in my family, like that's always been something that has been either taboo or just a stressor. And to hear you and your life and where it's heading is such an inspiration. It's so positive to like just know that that too can be you. And yeah, I just really wanted to just give that a bit of a shout out and acknowledgement. Truly.
I appreciate that. And I try to update my community as I progress. Like I even share my losses and like things that flop really hard in my life. For example, I've been talking a lot about paying off my $130,000 worth of student loans for the last like 6 years. And so to finally pay that off, October 2023, like filled me with so much emotions. I got so many shout outs from my community. I got DMs from like people that don't know me around the world. And they were like, we were so proud of you. We've been with you since 2000, blah, blah, blah. And to see the incremental improvements, I think is really, really meaningful because I did not become this overnight. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And it's so popular in social media to just pop up and say, oh, I'm making 300,000 overnight and you're garbage if you're not doing the same or if you can't figure it out yourself. And that's just not the case for anyone who makes their money legitimately. It's a progression, unless you inherit generational wealth. And if you can do that, I would recommend it.
Right. Which is very, like, I would say a very small percentage of generational wealth and also building on generational wealth. Like, I'm sure this is what you would want to do as well. If like you do set yourself off to having like a family of your own in that sense of offspring, right? That is also another thing, right, of its own. So now, I'm wondering, right, like, because for those that have families abroad, friends abroad, let's say like in our case, right, where we have a ton of friends and family back in the U.S., I'm sure this is like a very pending question of like, will you go back? Would you ever go back? Also, like just I'm curious, is that something that has ever crossed your mind? And I'll leave it to that. Yeah.
Yeah. The only way I would go back is kicking and screaming. So I would personally never choose to go back. My home is not the United States. However, there is a world in which someone gets sick or my husband's job brings us to the United States at some point. So never say never. I will say that any move back is purely temporary and in a place or in a position to address something specifically. My financial planning, my life, everything is in the European Union. I might not stay in Germany forever because we pay so much tax here, and I am not working 80-hour weeks to watch it drip out of my hands. So I will probably move to Malta long term. I want to be in the sunshine. I want my foreign earned income to be taxed at 0%. But Germany is good for right now.
Yeah. No, that's so valid too. I mean, also, I think also another thing, now that you've touched on that, is the romanticization of moving abroad, right? Because there's some hard truths and some hard realities. I know in the US, the taxation laws are totally different. Like the personal income tax is totally different from like the personal income tax system here in Germany. You do pay a lot of taxes, and that is also a pretty frustrating thing. So pros and cons around that. Like, what is something for you that's like a big pro living in a country despite getting taxed so high? And I guess you would say like a con, right?
Yeah. So as a like employed person by someone else, the labor laws here are incredible. You have to like notify our workers council, which is essentially a union, before you even want to talk to the person who is being impacted by layoffs. And that could be anywhere from like a month to 3 months. So you won't even know you've been impacted until 3 months later. Then they negotiate on your behalf. And during the pandemic times when we had to do layoffs, our company was like, we want 200 names. And the workers council was like, we'll give you 20. And that was fantastic. And then people walked away with like a year's worth of their salary. So it is the labor laws are incredible here. Once I become a full-time entrepreneur, I'm out because there is not a lot of incentive here in Germany to be an entrepreneur. The self-employment tax, the social contributions, the healthcare cost. In Malta, the cost of healthcare is a lot lower. I can afford to be private. I'm in the sunshine. The cost of living is a lot cheaper. I'm still in the European Union, so I feel like a certain level of safety. That just is more aligned with my financial goals for myself when I'm a full time entrepreneur and when I'm a little bit older, because I want to lay down. I don't want to lean in anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and I think with that message, it's like this slower lifestyle, right? And I think for those that are watching that don't understand what that kind of lifestyle is, say you have been grinding it out, you're hustling, you're doing the whole girl boss thing, and that's fine, but is it sustainable, right? And I think really like taking a step back and understanding, like if you've been feeling exhausted, burnt out, or tired, there's a reason for that, right? I think especially now that yesterday was Women's International Day, and this entire month is Women's History Month. I think also acknowledging ourselves as well as women in the conversation of entrepreneurship. And although it is great to lean into that masculine energy, there is also the feminine energy as well within ourselves that we need to recognize. And leaning into that, right? Leaning into the slower pace of life, and that you can accomplish everything from an entrepreneur business perspective. It just doesn't have to take you to the point of burnout, right? So
Totally. And my plan to combat that burnout is to free up more cash in my business, in my life. So I don't have to be working as hard. I have the opportunity to read, learn languages, cook, build a house. I don't really know I have no idea what my personality is going to be when I no longer have to like dig myself out of debt or race to early retirement. I'm actually really worried about that. Who am I if I'm not girl bossing, international spying, taking over places kind of person? So TBD on the next act of my life when I become financially independent.
yeah, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out. I mean, you already are on a path of success, and there's going to be ebbs and flows and highs and lows up through it all, and it's part of the journey, right? It's part of the season of life.
Yeah.
So one little itty bitty question that I have to throw at you, and I know we don't want to make the focus of this conversation on neurodiversity, but I really want to say like thank you for just even giving a shout out to that on your platform. I think it's so important to talk about that, and especially if like because there's like neurodivergency, and in that space and conversation, everybody falls in some sort of line, right? And nobody talks enough about that. And I think even with the intersectionality of that with entrepreneurship, sometimes it could be a bit difficult for those that are neurodivergent in that sense. So yeah, like why did you feel like it was important for you to talk about that?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and like that kind of had all the blocks fall into place, almost like a Tetris in my brain of why I do the things that I do, and why I jump from these really intense, hyper focused activities all the time. And part of the reason why I'm such a good entrepreneur is because I jump things every like 3 to 6 months when it comes to interest. So I have so many products, I have so many different streams of income because of my ADHD, and I'm very grateful for that. However, with that, I also have a lot of anxiety, and like I put myself in what I call a K hole sometimes, where I become so hyper focused that I don't shower, don't use the loo, don't sleep, don't eat. Like it's do not follow my life plan. It is me just trying to manage my ADHD without medication, because the medication really fucks with my sleep, my sex drive, like my whole personality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're just doing our best out here. And during the layoffs, I was not doing my best. I was deeply depressed, deeply anxious, couldn't focus. I did my nails every fucking day. Like these are press-ons. I had to rip them off of my nails every single day. I cut my hair in the middle of the day because I needed like to resemble some sort of control.
Yeah.
Um, and so I felt really compelled to share my story because I wanted to let people know, even with all of the safety things that I have working in the background to support myself, I am still mentally ill and just doing my best. And sometimes it goes haywire, but you shouldn't feel like you need to be perfect if you're dealing with something similar.
Yes. Okay. So with the current like state of affairs and all that stuff, and like I think just like some advice that you would give, I guess, to your younger self, if you had to go back and look at all the things that you've done to get to this point to where you are today. And I think to those that are listening or watching would identify as that person, right? So like what kind of advice would you give to your younger self when starting this process of like building a career abroad, moving abroad and all that stuff?
Yeah. My main piece of feedback, what it will be, you are not powerless. Like it feels overwhelming. It feels like a huge mountain, but you are not powerless in this situation. You can make the hard decisions. You can pick yourself back up. And I think we forget that sometimes because we just hear about how the whole world is collapsing, and we feel like anything that we do is just a drop in the ocean at this point. But most importantly, I think once we realize that there are different opportunities abroad and like different ways of working, living, et cetera, go find whatever fits your idea of an ideal life and just have the conviction in yourself to know that's what you want. And whatever this bullshit is that I'm living in right now is not forever. I had many, many people tell me I am effing crazy for moving to China, skipping out on law school, staying abroad. Even one of my classmates in like my capstone class made a comment in the class and was like, "Oh, why are you throwing away your entire education and everything that you worked for to not go to law school and then to go abroad instead? You're going to fall so much further behind from your peers. That's not reality. Join the real world, blah, 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 blah." And actually, a few years later, he reached out on Instagram and was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you were right. You totally should have gone out there. Being an adult effing sucks. And I'm so miserable after law school. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I wish I would have been as brave as you were." And so from that, I've never listened to anyone's feedback ever again. I was like, holy shit, I did it. This is pinnacle of like 360. And so, yeah, 2024, I'm in my villain era. I am not listening to feedback from people I don't respect or admire in any way. And sometimes people tease me about that at work because I literally say, I'm not available for feedback on this project. But they keep promoting me. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that confidence, and that's so so true. How like what a full circle moment, like pursuing something with like unapologetically, and setting your mind to it and just doing it, right? And that's again very admirable. It's a personality trait that I think people either have or would aspire and love to have. And your story is a testament to that. Really, like give yourself a pat on the back for that. It's a huge, huge thing.
I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So now that we're reaching towards the end of this conversation, is there anything that you would love to just like, kind of give a shout out to your work or anything at all that we haven't touched upon today in this conversation to those that are listening and watching?
Yeah. I just wanted to remind everyone that this shit is hard. This is really, really hard to pick up your life, pivot it abroad, and like actually make it. And so if you're feeling like this is the hardest thing you've ever done, you're feeling dissuaded, you're feeling dejected, it's been built to make people that feel that way. And that's why you're feeling that way. We have all felt that way. So you are in good company here. The whole point is the people who have been out here the longest are the ones that didn't give up. They're the ones that took the shitty pay or the no pay. We're the ones that emptied out our bank accounts to give to lawyers to fix our visa issues. We have missed major milestones in our friends and families' lives, but there is something greater out here that we're pursuing and we're willing to sacrifice for. And once you're finally out here, it gets better because you get better and you get more resilient and more understanding of the system around you. So if it feels like this is the hardest thing you've ever done, that's because it is.
Oh my god, that's such incredible advice. It actually provoked me to ask because as well, like I think just coming from my perspective, like living in the U.S., being born there and raised there, like a lot of people think that, oh well, if you want to move abroad and live, let's say, a more work-life balance life, you can. But if you really want to make money, then you would live in the U.S. What were you like? Do you have thoughts on like, can you rebuttal that in a way? I feel like you would have an argument to say against that.
Yeah. So the cost of living out here is so much lower, and the salaries reflect that. I'm not going to say that our salaries come close to like big tech or like finance salaries in the United States, but our risk and our costs are so much lower. I don't have an emergency fund for my health because we have universal health care here and we aren't blocked from accessing it. I don't need to have as fat of an emergency fund because I'm eligible for unemployment and government benefits. I only need a couple $1,000s a year to travel locally and within budget because we have $10 flights on Ryanair to France. Like the cost of living is so much lower over here that I am saving or investing like 40% of my income every month. And even my friends who have multiple six-figure salaries in the United States, they're not coming anywhere close to that. They're paying for a car, they're paying for insurance, they're paying deductibles, they're paying for childcare that's outrageous. We have such a beautiful standard of life here on so much less money. It reflects why we're so happy over here in comparison to people in the United States. And I'm not saying that we have it all figured out over here on the continent. We have some very real problems, but everyone is entitled to a basic standard of living, whereas in the United States, that's not the case.
Yeah, that's so true. And that I think is the reason why I think a lot of people are in this case to say focusing on focusing on Americans here, move abroad, right? I think they saw something elsewhere and they were like, I deserve that too, you know?
Totally. We all deserve it. And I think there is something to be said about like staying back in the United States and like fighting the good fight. But we are here for such a quick blink in like the space time continuum. You don't have to save everyone. You can also be selfish and save yourself and save your family and save the next generation from yourself or from the United States that is part of your family. And then kind of like work from abroad or from an outside position to try to make stuff better back at home. And that's why I offer so many resources with like personal finance, because that's my way of contributing for the better to the United States and like being part of the good fight, but like from over here.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely it's just like a comfortable and a safe distance to say, I'm here, but I'm not going to be in the mix of all that chaos because there's always so much like heaviness and chaos when it comes to, I would say, from our home country. So thank you for that. Really. So what are, now last words, what do you got going on? What would you like to share with the people? Where can they find you? All that jazz. This is your shameless plug moment.
Yeah, so I'm on all major platforms. Wander, Wander, onwards. Really, I'm known for my Move Abroad Masterclass, where we work one-on-one and within a group setting to get your ideal life abroad. I do that course about 4 times a year, so look out for it. I also offer a bunch of free workshops so you can like get an idea of what to expect when you're working abroad or when you want to make this jump abroad. A new thing that I'm starting to offer is more career and money focused content for more people who are more mature in their careers. So I'm a senior product manager at a Fortune 500 company. There are no resources for me It is all for the juniors, all for the entry level people, which, yeah, I get it. They need help. But I haven't found any resources for someone at my level. So I'm starting to create them for people above, people to the side of me, and for what I want for my next step in my career. And I think this is a really interesting niche that not a lot of people talk about, but my sister's in arms. Like, I want to support you. So come on down to Wander Onwards and get involved in the community.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your space. For those that want to continue on watching other episodes of this podcast or Work in Progress, you can tune in on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. And I will catch all of you guys on the next one.